Rejected for being infertile, she discovers an incredible irony: a farmer's touch transforms her. Sarah felt the weight of the world collapse around her when the doctor uttered the words she dreaded hearing. Every month brought hope that evaporated into despair, leaving her feeling more like a ghost in the bustling life of her small Midwestern town. As soon as the news hit, she spiraled from denial to determination, trying to convince herself that the life she lived as a dedicated teacher was meaningful enough. So why did it feel like an aching void? The walls of her tidy classroom, adorned with colorful drawings and inspirational quotes, felt more prison than sanctuary. Her heart sank further when Emily, her childhood friend, showed up with the news that she was pregnant. It flashed like a neon sign of inadequacy, the bright reality of a life Sarah yearned for, dominating any space for joy she could muster. "You'll be next," Emily smiled, and the sweetness of the words curdled in Sarah's gut. The unspoken but ubiquitous expectation lingered over her like a storm cloud, the kind of cloud that brings rain but never clears. She hadn't just let down herself, she'd failed her family's legacy. Desperation clawed at her insides until she decided to flee. Returning to her family's neglected farmland felt like stepping back into an unsettling dream. The laughter of her childhood felt phantasmagoric amongst the tangle of weeds and broken fences. She stood there, alone, the echoes of her past chipping away at her resolve. It was a buried memory of a place that once was alive with boundless hope. Now it mirrored the chaos inside her, overgrown, abandoned. Perhaps it was time to accept defeat and walk away for good. Just as doubt settled into her bones, a rustic figure emerged. Tom, a retired local farmer, with hands calloused from years spent in the soil. He saw her anguish, the way her shoulders slumped as she gazed upon the remnants of her dreams. With patience that suggested the wisdom of a man who understood life's unpredictable rhythms, he offered a gentle smile. "Let me show you how to work it, Sarah." A sudden resolve flickered within her. Could nurturing the earth restore some spirit within? The allure of dirt under her nails and green tendrils peeking through the ground began to chip away at her pain, even if just momentarily. She plunged into the rhythms of the farm. The community began to notice. Neighbors stopped by, sharing tales of struggle, echoing her own. Yet every planting came with the burden of what she lacked. As the seasons shifted, the intense grip of her anguish tightened, mirroring her frantic pacing during sleepless nights. Yet nurturing the earth seemed to birth a new flicker of life. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But looming above her newfound passion was the upcoming science fair. Her innovative methods promised a potential revolution for local farming, enough to restore her sense of worth. Yet, excitement was shackled by an ever-expanding shadow of doubt. Would she ever be seen for her contributions without the dimension of motherhood hanging heavily over her? The night before the fair approached, cloaked in an unsettling stillness. Standing amidst her creations in the dim barn light, her thoughts flared, a storm gathering strength outside as her heart echoed the upheaval of her insides. Every droplet of rain resonated with the fears that her efforts, like the farm itself, might be washed away before they could yield life. Would she emerge resilient, or would she be left with only despair? The heavy rain drummed on the metal roof of the barn, each resonant thrum amplifying Sarah's anxiety. She stood surrounded by her projects and notes, the small space a chaotic reflection of the turmoil in her mind. Her innovative methods of crop rotation and sustainable practices were laid out like a promise. But what if disappointment clouded this opportunity? What if she was once again left in the shadows of success? Failure loomed like dark clouds as she pictured the science fair. Faces would be watching, their eyes scrutinizing her efforts. Would they see a teacher turned farmer, or would they only see the woman defined by her inability to bear children, whose worth seemed to dwindle in comparison to those pursuing the expected life path? She flicked through her papers, each page representing hours of labor, hope, and spirit, but now they felt heavy with the weight of expectation. Tom's voice echoed in her mind, a steady reassurance reminding her that farming was a process, a cycle of planting, nurturing, and harvesting. Each action carried the risk of loss, but it was also an opportunity to learn. She felt herself wavering, not just in her agricultural pursuits, but in her deeper sense of self. The wind howled outside, rattling the barn as if trying to break through her resolve. She stepped to the open door, shivering as rain splattered against her. The vast dark landscape stretched out before her, and her heart raced as she faced the great outdoors, once a place of wonder, and now a battlefield of fear. For too long, she had defined her worth through societal norms, caught in a relentless cycle of self-doubt. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the cool, earthy air. If working the land had taught her anything, it was that growth didn't come without struggle. It required patience, resilience, and, most importantly, faith. The very faith that had dwindled like a winter crop. She had to believe that her work could yield results. Returning to the chaos of the barn, the light flickered above her, illuminating the sketches she had drawn of the new irrigation system she planned to implement. Beneath the technical details lay not just farming strategies, but an embodiment of her determination. She realized these were more than mere designs. They represented her commitment to change and the potential to carve out a new identity. Her hands moved to organize the scattered notes, each one a piece of her evolving narrative. She discovered the artwork and diagrams had their own way of whispering encouragement, urging her to reimagine who she was. With renewed energy, Sarah shifted her focus back to her project. She started to plan her presentation, visualizing how she would explain her methods and the research behind them. An idea sparked. What if she incorporated aspects of her personal journey? If she stripped away the layers of fear and vulnerability, perhaps others could see the strength that came from adversity. The thought filled her with a cautious optimism. Time slipped away unnoticed, replaced by a flicker of hope igniting within her. She permitted herself to embrace the possibility that her narrative, infused with personal struggle, could resonate with others. With small steps, she began writing down her thoughts, weaving her experience into hers, enhancing the science with a story. Yet, as she lay awake that night, excitement and dread clashed within her. Would her revelation be enough? The dawn was approaching, and with it, the science fair. Each tick of the clock propelled her forward. This was her chance to confront her fears, perhaps even to challenge the very nature of how she defined success. Was it truly about motherhood, or could it be about sowing her own seeds of change? As daylight seeped through her window, determination hardened within her. It would be her voice that would not only speak to the community, but to her very self. The moment had come for her to step into the arena, to reveal herself fully. She calmed her racing heart, preparing for a confrontation unlike any she had faced before. What she didn't know was that the truth she was about to confront could change everything. The sun peeked through the clouds as Sarah approached the fairground, its rays breaking through the remnants of the storm. The vibrant banners flapped in the cool breeze, vibrant and carefree, contrasting sharply with the tumult of her thoughts. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, the hum of chatter and laughter carrying through the air like an invisible current. Yet with every step she took, anxiety coiled tighter around her chest, squeezing out breaths filled with uncertainty. She spotted her display nestled among a row of tables, the papers and diagrams now carefully arranged, a visual testament to her dedication. Each glance at her project felt both exhilarating and suffocating. Would it speak for her? Would it enthrall, or would it fall flat under the watchful gazes of the crowd? Navigating through faces, some familiar, some not, Sarah felt the diverging paths manifesting in her mind. This was not simply about sustainable farming or innovative techniques. It was about her emergence. Inspiration and fear twisted together like roots below the surface, grounded yet entangled. From a distance, she could see Tom talking with a few patrons, gesturing animatedly toward her project. He radiated confidence. His presence reassured her, but also emphasized her spiraling self-doubt. "Hey, it looks great. You've worked so hard," he said, joining her at the display. His eyes sparkled with encouragement, and for a moment, her trepidation diminished. Perhaps she wasn't just a former teacher trying to make her mark. Perhaps she was a beacon of resilience. "Thanks," she replied, a smile touching her lips, though her heart raced. But it's not just about the presentation, it's me, my story. What if they don't see it like I do? Tom furrowed his brow. Then make sure they do. You've brought your experiences into this. Share who you are. He stepped back, allowing her space to breathe. His words hung in the air like a challenge, igniting the flicker of passion within her. The moment she'd feared was upon her. A small group of visitors drew closer, glancing at her project. As they approached, Sarah's vision narrowed. She could see her ideas resonate through their raised eyebrows and intrigued expressions. Summoning her nerve, she stepped forward into their orbit, her heartbeat drumming against her ribcage. "Welcome, I'm Sarah," she began, her voice steadying. "What I've created here highlights innovative crop rotation techniques that prioritize sustainability and resilience." Gradually, as she spoke, her nerves melted away, replaced by the pulse of something growing, a sense of belonging. As she detailed the science behind her methods, Sarah reached a pivotal moment in her narrative, a turn from mere statistics to the personal journey that had shaped her. Farming is a reflection of the cycles in life. I've faced my own challenges, those deep-rooted fears about not conforming to societal expectations. It's from that struggle that I've found my voice. The words flowed more freely now, unshackled by doubt. She observed her audience nodding, leaning in closer as she shared her authentic self, the trials, the triumphs, the unearthing of new truths woven into her practices. What began as anxious stakes had evolved into potent purpose. She realized that her story was as important as the techniques she demonstrated. Just then, a man interrupted, his expression skeptical. "Is this really as effective as you claim? Can you assure us it works?" The challenge in his tone sent a ripple through the gathering. A familiar wave of doubt crashed over her, but she steadied herself, rising to confront the doubt he cast. "Effectiveness is proven over time, through experimentation," Sarah replied evenly, an unexpected confidence simmering beneath the surface of her words. "Just as seeds need nurturing to grow, so do our methods. Both require faith, resilience, and, above all, a willingness to adapt." The exchange sparked something within her that felt revolutionary. Could this be the beginning of her shift from merely surviving to thriving? As the conversation continued, she suddenly sensed an electrifying realization. Every interaction was a chance to plant her seeds of change. Each person before her was a potential ally in her journey, and she could inspire them by daring to be vulnerable, by sharing the raw edges of her experience. The fair felt alive, expanding beyond mere evaluations of her project. It had morphed into a new battleground where she could redefine success, not as conformity to expectations, but as a commitment to growth in all its forms. Yet, as the crowd grew thicker, the specter of self-doubt hung in the background, waiting for its turn. Just how enduring would her newfound courage be when faced with the deeper challenge of her reality? With the stakes rising and the room buzzing, Sarah stood at the cusp of revelation. There was an inkling within, a whisper of truth waiting to be fully unveiled. What awaited her once the fair ended? What would she discover when the loud bustle faded, leaving her alone with her thoughts again? The answers loomed ahead, tantalizing and terrifying. The day wore on, and Sarah's initial fear transformed into an unexpected rhythm of engagement. Visitors flowed in and out, the discussions igniting warm exchanges and lively debates. With each interaction, her voice grew more assured, weaving her personal anecdotes into the technical details of her work. Yet, as the initial adrenaline wore off, the undercurrent of her anxiety returned, making her acutely aware of her vulnerabilities. A moment of respite came when a brief lull in the crowd allowed her to catch her breath. Leaning against the table, she took a moment to absorb her surroundings. The vibrant colors of the displays and the aroma of street food drifted gently around her, yet the cacophony of voices faded into a background hum. Here, away from the scrutinizing gaze of the crowd, her thoughts wandered to the man who had questioned her earlier. His challenge had rattled her, unearthing deeper fears. What if she truly wasn't enough? Her heart nodded at the thought. She had built this project, nurtured it with every ounce of determination, but what of her own self-doubt underneath the surface? She could present data all day, but could she convince herself of her worth? Her fingers traced the edge of her display. Each diagram, each carefully penned note was a testament to her growth, yet they felt like a shield against her insecurities rather than a full embrace of who she was becoming. The irony struck her. She had spent so much time convincing others of her capabilities, yet the hardest battle lay within. With newfound clarity, Sarah grasped the complexity of her situation. Her journey mirrored her farming ethos more than she had realized. Each crop came from a cycle of nurturing, suffering, and eventually thriving, just as she had. What if she acknowledged her own trials, embraced her insecurities, and presented them as part of her narrative? If she could thrive through her struggles, so could those around her. Strengthened by this revelation, she decided to approach her next group with vulnerability. As they huddled closer, listening intently, Sarah shaped her introduction not just with technical facts, but with the truth of her experience. "I'm not just here to talk about crops," she began, her voice softer but purposeful. "I'm here because of my journey, my challenges with infertility, and how they shaped my approach to farming and life." The vulnerability hung in the air, and she felt the shift as several faces opened up, concern mingling with curiosity. The palpable connection sparked in that moment created a bridge between her personal experiences and the shared struggles faced by others. A woman in the group stepped forward. "I can relate to what you're saying," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I've felt that pressure to conform too." As they shared their own stories, the wall Sarah had erected began to crumble. The crowd transformed into a circle of support instead of a battleground of judgment. She realized that vulnerability was not a weakness. It was an invitation for others to join her in mutual understanding. But as the group deepened their exchange, a familiar figure loomed on the periphery. Tom, a mixture of pride and concern on his brow. Was his support wavering? She steadied her breath, striving to quell the concern swirling in her stomach. Had she shared too much? As the fair began to wind down, the questions lingered in her mind. How much of herself was she willing to expose? What would be the repercussions? Tom's expression suggested a silent critique, and for a fleeting moment, an unsettling doubt pierced through her newfound confidence. With her heart racing, she knew she had come too far to turn back now. She was on the brink of realizing something monumental about her future path. Her true essence could not only change her own narrative, but could echo in the lives of others. As she stepped into the last moments of the fair, anticipation hung in the air. Would her honesty resonate beyond this day? How would she straddle the line between personal truth and professional growth when the adrenaline faded? What awaited her under the stretch of an ordinary sky back at home? Would her newfound connections turn into lasting relationships? Or would she have to confront the loneliness that had so often shadowed her journey? The unresolved tension clung to her like dew on morning grass, whispering that the real test of her resolve had only just begun. As the final attendees began to drift away, Sarah's heart remained in turmoil, buzzing with unresolved apprehension. She had shared her struggles, her truth, yet the weight of Tom's contemplative gaze persisted in the background like an uninvited shadow. She needed to confront her rising self-doubt. The echoes of his disapproval seemed to magnify her insecurities, distorting her otherwise liberating experience. With the scent of street food still swirling around her, she packed her materials with a sense of urgency. Each item she folded into her carry bag felt like a chapter of an unfinished story, one that was begging for resolution. Could she embrace her truth without fearing the judgment of those close to her? The thought crushed her spirit momentarily, but she steeled herself, reminding herself of the connections she'd forged that day. Tom approached, and Sarah braced for his discourse. He stood a few feet away, deliberating as if weighing his words. "You did well," he finally said, though his tone was muted. "It was bold to share your story." The hesitation in his voice ignited a spark of indignation in her. Boldness! Was that the best he could muster? The exasperation welled inside. "It was more than bold, Tom. It was me finally taking the leap to show who I am beneath the surface." His brows furrowed. "I understand, but maybe you don't," she interrupted, the desperation slipping through as frustration. "I've stood in the shadows for too long. This is my life, my pain. Why does it matter how it's perceived?" Tom clenched his fists, and Sarah could see the internal conflict battling within him. "It matters because people fear vulnerability. They can turn it against you." And they can also connect with it, she shot back. I refuse to hide anymore. I need to express my truth, not bury it because I fear judgment. Isn't that something you've always wanted me to do? He sighed deeply, the surrender evident in the way he dropped his shoulders. I want you to succeed. I just don't want this to backfire on you. The vulnerability in his tone softened her. She took a step closer. All breakthroughs require discomfort, Tom. I understand your concerns, but I'm tired of letting fear dictate my choices. The moment lingered as she sought the depths of his gaze, searching for signs of understanding. It was there, albeit reluctant. Perhaps his fear was rooted in wanting to protect her, but she could no longer allow that to hinder her growth. I'm still figuring things out, but I promise I won't retreat, she declared, taking a deep breath. I've spent too long doubting my worth. This is a process. I embrace the discomfort now. He nodded slowly, an understanding forming in the silence between them. As they made their way towards the exit, Sarah's thoughts became a battlefield, battling between optimism and lingering doubts. Had he truly listened? She had revealed something powerful about herself, yet uncertainty gnawed at her. What would they think of her when she was vulnerable? When did vulnerability transmute into risk? That night, as she lay in bed, the warm glow of reflections filled her mind. Each interaction from the day surged forth, prompting new questions, amplifying her desires for growth. Would she be able to maintain this new trajectory amidst the inevitable scrutiny? Tomorrow would be pivotal. She felt the pulse of determination rally within her, but it clashed uncomfortably with her concerns about exposure and acceptance. How far was she willing to go to remain true to herself while navigating the complexities of her professional world? Just as she thought she had grasped her ambitions, she was startled by the ringing of her phone. The screen lit up with a name that struck dread into her heart. Rebecca, the one colleague who had never accepted her choices. What did she want now? Sarah hesitated, heart pounding. The call would either solidify her resolve or unravel her confidence. The moment had arrived where she must confront an undeniable truth. The push toward authenticity may demand a heavier price than she anticipated. As she answered, the weight of her vulnerability pressed down anew, a reminder that the journey was only just beginning. As Sarah braced herself for Rebecca's call, her instincts yelled at her to prepare for the worst. Rebecca had mastered the art of snide comments and group isolation. Each word seemed carefully crafted to dismantle confidence and build walls of uncertainty. The ringing faded, and Sarah forced herself to exhale, steadying her breath as she listened to the line click open. Sarah, Rebecca's voice dripped with feigned concern. I heard you spoke at that gathering. I must say, it's a bit surprising you decided to step into the spotlight. Surprising. The word hung heavy in the air. Sarah could feel the pressure rising in her chest as she countered the tone with defiance. I've taken steps towards honesty, Rebecca. It's not a surprise to those who understand my journey. For a moment, silence stretched between them, an icy acknowledgement of the truth lying beneath her statement. Sarah's heart raced. This was not the infallible facade she was accustomed to, but the real exposed Sarah she had just begun to embrace. She pushed aside the voice urging her to retreat, to play small. Well, I just wonder if it's wise, Rebecca finally said, the hint of challenge sparking a flame within Sarah. Everyone else is navigating their careers. There's a certain professionalism to uphold. What I'm doing is exactly that. Upholding my career, embracing my voice is the foundation of my growth. Each word came with renewed vigor, not just to counter Rebecca, but to solidify her own convictions. Fine, but don't come crying to me when it blows up in your face. The tone was sharp, yet Sarah detected an undercurrent of, what? Fear, perhaps? As if Rebecca projected her insecurities onto Sarah, a weapon of intimidation. Thanks for the concern, but I'd rather take risks and embrace uncertainty than sit quietly hoping for validation, she shot back, disbelief mixing with a tentative sense of victory. The call ended, and Sarah hung up, her heart racing but her spirit ignited. That encounter shone a light on deeper fears she hadn't anticipated. Was she really ready to challenge the doubts of those like Rebecca? Could she maintain this resolve in the face of professional pushback? As she lay in bed, everything shifted within her. She didn't need to seek approval, but the echoes of Rebecca's words unnerved her. The confrontation had become a powerful catalyst, a reminder that the threat of judgment was only as strong as she allowed it to be. By morning, Sarah awoke buoyed with newfound determination. She opened her laptop and began drafting a blog post about her experience, channeling the vulnerability she'd shared the day before, convinced the narrative held its power in authenticity. As the words flowed from her fingertips, she became absorbed in the process, breathing life into the themes of fear and liberation. However, an unsettling thought pricked at her mind. What if someone she knew read it? What if Rebecca or others belittled her efforts? She paused, fingers hovering over the keys. This was exactly what she had expressed to Tom. The push towards authenticity would demand courage. With a firm resolve, she finished the post and clicked publish. The moment held a kind of finality, ushering her into uncharted territory, but the track ahead twisted unpredictably. As the flashes of anxiety simmered beneath the surface, Sarah's phone buzzed again, this time with a notification of a comment on her blog post. A knot tightened in her stomach as she read the words, "You really think anyone wants to hear your sob story?" Her pulse quickened. The comment served as a jarring reminder that her journey was far from linear, the acceptance she craved battling against the harsh scrutiny of judgment. As she stared at the screen, fury and determination meshed inside her. This moment was pivotal, a decision point that tethered her back to her own intentions. Would she let one bitter voice unravel her progress? The ground shifted beneath her, and she was about to find out just how far she was willing to take this commitment to authenticity. In the depths of her mind, questions swirled like a storm. Would she confront Rebecca again? How could she defend her truth in a landscape so unforgiving? As she contemplated the next steps, a sense of anticipation coursed through her veins. This was more than a personal challenge, it was a relentless pursuit of self. And then a new message chimed in her inbox, abruptly halting her thoughts. "Can we talk? I saw your post, and I want to discuss something important." It was Tom again. Tension zeroed in around her. What could he possibly want now? Would he support her, or try to steer her away from the very path she had committed to? Sarah stared at the message from Tom, her heart suspended in a tight grip of unease. The screen's glow illuminated the thoughts racing through her mind, swirling with both anxiety and an emboldened sense of purpose. She had shared a part of herself, a hesitant but real step toward authenticity, and now this. What discussion could he want to have that would align with the journey she was beginning to embrace? Taking a deep breath, she typed a quick reply. "Yes, let's talk. When?" The anticipation clawed at her. Half of her feared a lecture about her recent choices, while the other half craved support from someone who could understand the newly forged version of her. The reply came back quickly. "How about an hour?" Sarah glanced around her cluttered apartment, finding it hard to concentrate on tidying up her space when her mind felt equally chaotic. After a few minutes that felt like an eternity, Tom arrived. He entered her living room, his expression a mix of curiosity and something deeper. Concern, maybe? As she gestured for him to sit on her well-worn couch, the familiar environment didn't ease her tension. She was acutely aware that this was a pivotal moment, a conversation that could solidify the new direction she wanted to take, or push her back into shadows of doubt. "I saw your post," he began, carefully towing the line between professionalism and friendship. "I think it was brave of you to share that." "Brave? It felt like jumping off a cliff," she countered, her voice firmer than she felt. "But I'm tired of hiding. I want to talk about my experiences, not bury them." Tom nodded, his brow furrowing as he considered her words. "I get that, but articles like yours can draw scrutiny. People might misinterpret your intentions. You have to be ready for that backlash." A wave of disbelief washed over her. "So you want me to shrink back? Hide behind a wall of professionalism like Rebecca?" "I'm not saying that," he replied, raising his hands in defense. "I just want to make sure you're aware of the consequences. Authenticity is powerful but can also be uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable? Like being rejected for being myself? Or like every time I hesitated to speak up for fear of what others think?" Her voice rose slightly, emboldened by the frustration she had stifled for too long. Sarah, I just think you need to be strategic about this, he urged, his tone shifting from caution to guidance. How can you channel that energy, that truth, into something that'll advance your career rather than expose you? By being real, by accepting that my journey isn't just mine but is shared by others, she argued, determination glistening in her eyes. I won't accept the narrative that silence is safer. Tom fell silent, watching her with an intensity that unnerved her. You really believe that, don't you? That by speaking out, you can create a conversation? Absolutely, she replied, feeling a burgeoning sense of empowerment. And I refuse to let Rebecca or anyone else dictate what that should look like. He leaned back, the skepticism in his posture slowly dissipating, replaced by intrigue. Then what do you want to do next? Writing a blog is one thing, but it's a small step. Sarah considered this. I want to hold a workshop. Create a platform where people can share similar stories of struggles, help them reclaim their voices. Tom raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious, but it could invite even more scrutiny than a blog. Are you ready for that? Ready or not, it's time to push forward. If I can share my vulnerabilities, then surely others can too, she declared, each word cementing her resolve. Taking a deep breath, she felt an unexpected calmness wash over her as the idea began to form into something more than a fleeting thought. This was about more than just confronting Rebecca. It was about solidarity, confronting societal norms, and carving out a space where voices like hers could resonate. The realization that emerged in that moment invigorated her. This was about leadership, about crafting her narrative. As Tom studied her, an affirmation flashed across his face. Okay, let's brainstorm how to make this happen. But as they began to outline plans for the workshop, the earlier unease settled back in like a low hum beneath her excitement. What repercussions would their ambitions attract? Was she truly prepared to face those who might seek to undermine her? With so much at stake, Sarah felt the weight of her newfound purpose teetering on the edge of both pride and vulnerability. And just as she thought she had strengthened herself against doubt, her phone buzzed again. This time, a notification from her blog. You're naive if you think anyone cares about your workshop. With a racing pulse and a sharpened focus on the path ahead, Sarah could sense a storm brewing. The confrontation wasn't over. Rather, it had just begun, and she was on the verge of relentless pursuit, defiance guiding her every step. Bracing for the next challenge, Sarah steeled herself, ready to dive deeper into uncharted territory. This wasn't just about her voice anymore. It was about a community waiting to emerge. How far would her commitment to authenticity take her? Would she dare to confront the bitterness head-on? The following morning, Sarah awoke with a blend of anticipation and dread. The harsh light filtering through her curtains felt different today. It illuminated not just her cluttered apartment, but her chaotic mind. The message from her blog left an unsettling residue, a reminder of the shadows that lurked on the periphery of her newfound purpose. Staring at the damp coffee mug on the counter, Sarah pondered her next move. Reaching for her notebook, she jotted down her feelings, allowing the ink to capture her anger and frustration. Naive, she wrote, but it doesn't matter. If anything, it fuels me. With each stroke of the pen, she solidified her resolve, channeling the doubt into something tangible. Her phone buzzed again, another notification from her blog. She hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to ignore it. But curiosity won. She clicked to reveal the words. You'll regret being this transparent, it read. The stinging truth of the comment seemed to reinforce her earlier beliefs. The world was fraught with naysayers. And yet, the very act of sharing her truth had become her lifeline. Determined to not allow negativity to derail her, Sarah set a plan into motion. She would spend the day drafting an outline for her workshop, carefully considering the structure and content. This needed to be impactful. It could either galvanize others or invite their scorn. The prospect of leading such a session felt daunting, but revising her purpose reminded her of the strength born from vulnerability. As the hours passed, her thoughts turned back to Tom's earlier question about pushback. What kind of backlash should she anticipate? Was she prepared for the confrontation of ideals? Drawing from the depths of her resolve, she began listing potential topics and exercises that would facilitate open dialogue, focusing on personal stories of hardship and resilience. It was a delicate balancing act, offering space without opening the floodgates to cynicism. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she typed out a mission statement. The workshop will be a safe haven for those marginalized by their experiences, embracing authenticity while challenging societal norms. But an internal monologue rose. Was she ready? If her intention was to foster a conversation, could she handle the scrutiny that would inevitably follow? The path ahead was murky, tangled with uncertainty. Just then she heard a knock at the door. Her heart raced as she wondered who it could be. Another critic, perhaps? Or maybe Tom returning to offer more pragmatic advice? Throwing the door open, she was met with an unexpected sight. Lila, her old college friend, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, a symbol of positivity amidst her chaos. "Hey, I thought I'd check in," Lila beamed, stepping inside without an invitation. "I saw your blog post and thought, this is going to change everything for Sarah." Sarah's stomach twisted. Had Lila come to encourage her, or was this another moment of judgment veiled in a cheerful facade? "Thanks," she replied cautiously, her defenses already rising in the face of potential scrutiny. Lila seemed undeterred. "You've always been passionate about speaking out about difficult topics. This workshop is a natural evolution. Just think, you could inspire so many." As they talked, Sarah felt a shift, an innate connection rekindling in their shared experiences. Over the years, Lila had faced her own battles, and that understanding formed an unspoken bond between them. The conversation soon circled back to the workshop. "Tell me about your vision," Lila said with genuine enthusiasm, prompting Sarah to unveil her ideas. In the midst of sharing, Sarah caught the flicker of enthusiasm igniting within her. She began to articulate her aims. This was not just a workshop, it was a movement, however small, to elevate voices that felt stifled. Her conviction solidified with every word. She wasn't merely pushing back against negativity, but forging a new path. Yet as the dialogue deepened, so did her awareness of the looming effort ahead, the need for courage to face potential backlash. With Lila's support, the weight of that struggle felt somewhat lighter. Their shared laughter and this moment of connection illuminated the truth of Sarah's journey. She wasn't alone, not anymore. Inspired, she made a mental note. She would invite Lila to participate when the workshop took shape. But as their conversation drifted to lighter topics, another notification popped up on Sarah's phone. A direct message from Rebecca. "I see you're making waves. Be careful, not everyone respects your boldness." The text sent a sharp jolt through her, overshadowing the warmth of friendship. Doubt crept back in, raising a flicker of anxiety. How would she navigate the impending storm of attacks? Could she find a way to remain fearless amid the chaos? Sarah inhaled sharply, locking eyes with Lila. She realized at that moment this challenge could either shatter her newfound strength or sharpen it. Would she hold steadfast to her mission, or would the specter of criticism force her back into hiding? As she contemplated her answer, a resolute clarity washed over her. The time to face the fear was now. With Lila at her side, she steeled herself to confront the tumultuous road ahead. The next morning, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, staring at the blank page before her in the notebook. The anticipation of her workshop filled her with an electric mix of hope and apprehension. With Lila's support from the previous day still resonating in her heart, she picked up her pen with renewed determination. "Today is the day I start crafting my message," she declared softly, the words almost a mantra. She recalled Lila's encouraging smile and how she had effortlessly reignited that spark within her. A fire she thought might have flickered out in the face of doubt seemed to burn brighter instead. She began writing down her thoughts, creating bullet points that captured the essence of what she wanted to communicate. Each line delved deeper into her experiences, shining light on the injustices that so often felt too heavy to bear. As she wrote, memories rushed in, times of failure, rejection, the incessant voice of negativity, each serving as the backdrop to the narrative she wanted to build. Her fingers moved with purpose now, transforming that chaotic storm in her mind into organized clarity. "I embrace vulnerability and stand firm against societal norms," she wrote. But just as she felt a sense of accomplishment, doubt crept in again, whispering insidiously, "What makes you think you can truly affect change? What if people laugh? What if they judge?" Yet instead of allowing the doubt to paralyze her, she confronted those thoughts. They were, she realized, merely the echoes of an old narrative, one that no longer served her. Sarah made a calculated decision. This workshop was for those who felt unheard, for every soul that endured shadows akin to hers. Suddenly she jumped up from her chair. The rush of inspiration demanded action beyond mere words on a page. She grabbed her phone and started reaching out to potential participants, friends, acquaintances, and even people she had met online who shared their struggles. Each invitation sent seemed to transform her anxiety into purpose. With each message, Sarah felt a growing sense of connection. The responses began to flow in, warm and appreciative. It was electric. It pushed aside the lingering doubts as her community started to coalesce around her vision. But as she basked in this newfound energy, the weight of potential criticisms returned. A small voice inside asked, was she truly ready for what was coming? The earlier jibe from Rebecca flashed across her mind, relentless. Be careful, not everyone respects your boldness. Determined not to fall into a spiral of fear, Sarah penned out a response to the uncertainty. What's the worst that can happen? She asked herself. Some people may criticize, but others will resonate with my message. With her heart steadying, she acknowledged the bruised parts of herself. They weren't impediments. They were the very fabric of her authenticity, the reality she intended to share. Before she could let those thoughts of doubt linger, the doorbell rang, interrupting her flow. Heart racing, she opened it to find Lila carrying a pile of pamphlets, bright and colorful, brimming with enthusiasm. I thought you'd need some promotional support, she beamed, her optimism infectious. As they sat on the floor together, planning and brainstorming, Sarah felt alive, filled with an undeniable sense of possibility and camaraderie. This engagement redefined the workshop. It was no longer just an outline of ideas. It was evolving into a profound conversation that could shatter silences. Yet, as Sarah stared into the plain, elegant design of the pamphlet, an internal warning sign flickered. What might others think once those pamphlets went public? Would they be met with applause or disdain? Emboldened but intrinsically cautious, she knew she had to prepare for both responses. This internal struggle was her to navigate. She took a deep breath, glancing at Lila, who was fully absorbed in her joyous creativity. Wrapping up their session, Sarah turned to her friend. I need to gather my courage. When it comes to the workshop, I must face whatever comes next. With that determination swirling in her mind, she wondered, would the struggle ahead define her, or would it fortify her resolve? An electric tension laid in wait, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge, the confrontation with those who doubted her, was yet to come. In that moment, Sarah grasped her pen tightly, ready to write the next chapter of her story. And as she prepared for the unfolding days of her workshop debut, she knew the upcoming confrontation with Rebecca was looming larger than ever, challenging her to choose between defensiveness and strength. The day had dawned bright and clear on the morning of Sarah's workshop, but the glow of the sun could not outshine the deeply rooted anxiety coursing through her veins. Each breath was laden with nerves as she prepared for the gathering of voices. Today, the culmination of her fears and triumphs would coalesce into an open space. This was her opportunity to share her journey and inspire others. Sarah stood at the entrance of the old barn that had transformed into a welcoming sanctuary filled with handmade decorations, vibrant colors splashed across the walls, and the palpable energy of those eager to share. The seats filled quickly as participants settled in, eyes fluttering with anticipation. It was a moment that called for bravery, a chance to champion her newfound identity. With Lila by her side, Sarah took a deep breath and stepped to the front of the room. As she gazed upon the faces before her, she could sense a mixture of excitement and trepidation among them, mirroring her own. The familiar feeling of self-doubt crept in, but this time she chose to confront it rather than retreat into it. She was not the woman who would falter under judgment. She knew that she had the power to plant seeds of understanding and connection. "Welcome," she said, her voice steady but warm. "Today is about embracing our stories and the beauty that comes from vulnerability. Each of us carries burdens, whether societal expectations or personal struggles. These hardships connect us in profound ways and shape who we are. As the hours passed, Sarah guided discussions, nurturing dialogue around the common themes of struggle. Participants shared their narratives, exploring topics of adversity and hope. Sarah skillfully integrated her own story, recounting the shadows of infertility, how it had shaped her approach to farming and life, and ultimately led her to this very moment. The rawness of her honesty transformed the atmosphere. It was no longer just a workshop, but a crucible of shared strength and resilience. Midway through, a familiar tension flickered in the air. A voice broke through. Rebecca, standing there with arms crossed, her presence like a dark cloud above them. "What's the point in all this?" she questioned, seeming to relish the discomfort she brought to the room. "Do you really think you can teach others when you yourself are still figuring things out?" The collective breath held in the room crashed around Sarah. Heart pounding, the weight of expectations threatened to drown her. Yet, as she absorbed the gaze of expectant participants seeking guidance, a flicker of anger ignited in her chest. She had come too far to let Rebecca's shadow eclipse this moment. "This isn't just about perfection," Sarah replied, her voice resolute. "It's about acknowledging our journeys, the imperfections, the lessons, and the strength that arises from vulnerability. It's a collective healing, a movement toward authenticity. And you know what? If that makes me a work in progress, then so be it." The room hummed with energy. Participants nodded, visibly rallying around her words. Rebecca's lips pressed into a thin line, yet Sarah felt empowered, channeling the support of everyone present. The air, thick with determination, urged her forward. When Rebecca faltered, Sarah seized the moment, extending her hand to the audience. Who here has faced challenges they've felt silenced about? She welcomed raised hands, hearts intertwining in shared experiences. Together, we break the chains of conformity. A storm had been born within that moment. As the workshop continued, Sarah embraced her voice more fully. The fear that had previously dictated her choices dissipated, replaced by a potent realization. Her journey was valid, and it had the potential to uplift others. Conversations flowed, connections bloomed. The vulnerability they shared became the soil for new growth. By the end of the day, the weight that had once held Sarah captive had transformed into a palpable sense of achievement flowing through her veins. She had not only empowered herself, but had created a platform for others to reclaim their stories. Each story shared was a testament to bravery, a mirror reflecting the brilliance of human experience. The day closed with laughter and newfound friendships anchoring alongside deeper understanding. As participants trickled out, hearts humming with the energy of recognition, Sarah soaked in the atmosphere. This was triumph, this was liberation. In that moment, she stood not as a woman uncertain of her worth or pushed by societal pressure, but as a force of nature, ready to challenge conventions and grow alongside those who dared to believe. Sarah realized this had been her metamorphosis. She had conquered the doubts that shadowed her journey. Proving to herself her worthiness and strength became her greatest personal achievement. The recognition that she belonged to her own narrative, a narrative filled with resilience and the will to persevere, regardless of others' expectations. Walking away from the barn, she watched the sunset, bathing the land in golden hues that mirrored her heart. The path ahead was one she had charted, a journey of authenticity amid a world marred by expectation. It was time to cultivate a legacy that embraced imperfection, resilience, and above all, a shared commitment to thriving. Sarah understood now. Fear was not an adversary but a companion on her journey of transformation, urging her to step boldly into the next phase of her life. As she took her place under the vast Midwestern sky, she smiled at the beauty of her achievement, not just personally, but collectively. A well-tended garden of voices began to unfurl, and Sarah was prepared to nurture its growth, with her heart anchored in an unshakable confidence. Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that empower and inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for more content like this. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's transformative journey because your insights matter. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the power of sharing. Join us in lifting each other up.